I'll be honest. This week was hard for me when it came to preparing to preach. I looked at the lectionary passages for this Sunday, and nothing really spoke to me. Usually every week, there's at least one scripture passage that will pique my interest, but nothing this week. No dice, nothing seemed the least bit interesting to me. So I wrestled with it, and it probably didn't help that it was a shorter week, and I had the self-imposed pressure to get on top of writing the sermon sooner than usual. So I sat in my office, in front of my computer, staring at the screen, and waiting for some kind of inspiration, some kind of holy interruption. And I kept on sitting, and staring, and drawing a blank, twiddling my fingers a little bit too. And then it came to me, I don't know how, when, or what I did, but it came to me to preach over one of my favorites, probably my favorite scripture passage, which is Psalm 139. Now, probably like most of you, my favorite passage has changed over the years, but Psalm 139 has been my favorite for a while. So I'm sharing something very special with you today. Yes, it's just a sermon, but it's also something more. It's very true that you can look into the heart and soul and life of a minister by how and what they preach. And that's very true today, as I share a part of myself with you. It goes without saying, but Psalm 139 is a song. A song is a form of poetry usually set to music. It's commonly believed that the Book of Psalms was an early version of a hymn book that the early believers used in settings of worship. I absolutely love the Book of Psalms. I love the honesty that is poured out in the words and also in the emotions behind the words. The Book of Psalms touches upon every single high and low point in one's relationship with God. From, oh God, I praise you and I love you, to, why, oh God, do you ignore me and curse the day I was born, and everything in between. In my opinion, the Book of Psalms is probably the most honest book throughout the entire Bible. And to me, that's refreshing. And I can't help but admire that. Every week on the lectionary schedule, there's a psalm that one can choose to preach over, and I often don't, as you know. And neither do a lot of other preachers. The selected psalm passages from the lectionary are usually seen as complementing the other meatier passages in the New Testament and the Old Testament. In a way, the psalm is more of a side dish than the entree. Truthfully, I think it's hard to preach over a psalm because it covers such personal material. The Book of Psalms is really like a diary into one's soul. But at the same time, that makes it easy to preach over a psalm because the content of a psalm can be felt so easily amongst all humanity because we've probably all been in the same situation as the psalmist who wrote it. Now, the details of our circumstances are most likely different, but the same emotion and feeling is there. We can connect to the emotions of the psalm so well because we have all been there. Psalm 139 is a very personal psalm, more so than many of the others. And a lot of times in life and in the Bible, there's discussion about God as if God is far away from us. If we really think about it, a lot of times in the church and in our own lives, we talk about God as if God does not really relate to us. We just talk about God, as if God is far away from us. But Psalm 139 has a much different tone. Its tone is of a very personal nature, and is directed towards a very personal God who is so deeply intertwined in the psalmist's life. Now, we can approach the psalm in at least two different ways. For some of us, this really personal tone to this song can be a little off-putting and scary. As the psalmist writes, God searches us and knows us. God knows the words we are going to say before they even touch and reach our tongue. God knows when we sit down and rise up. Where can we go from God's Spirit? That's some really personal stuff, material. Some of us might get a feeling as if it's a little bit intrusive. Sure, we know we need a personal relationship with God, but this might just seem a little too personal. Perhaps we are simply a private person who needs a little bit more personal space and some secrets of our own, apart from God. As wonderful as it is that we have a God who is always there for us, we might feel as if we need a little bit more breathing room. And it goes without saying, but if we have a God who knows us so well, knows our thoughts, words, and actions, we better be careful what we think, say, and do. The song can make us a little bit on edge about living life because God knows everything. In this way, God could be equated with being a Santa Claus that had a naughty and nice list, where he's making a list and checking it twice. That's one way to interpret this song. However, I believe there's a better way. One which I tend to lean towards. But that goes without saying, because if this song gave me the impression I just described, it wouldn't be my favorite song. It wouldn't be my favorite passage. For me, Psalm 159 is a very comforting scripture passage. It makes me feel calm and safe and happy and joyful. To know that God, my God, is so very closely attuned to my life, yes, my actions, my thoughts, and my words, is incredibly comforting. To know that I can go nowhere where God is not there provides me reassurance when I feel lost. To know that God knew me before I was even born and will until my last breath and beyond makes me smile and have confidence that I can face anything I experience in life. Because I have such a personal God who cares. The song reminds me that God cares for me in my life, and God cares for you in your life, in all its varied facets. It's cliche, we've heard it before. For some of us it might be a bit fluffy or flowery, but that's reality. That message was true for the psalmist who wrote this song. And that message is true for us today. So when you feel lost and confused, unwanted, unneeded, or just played down in the dumps, I urge you to go to Psalm 139 for assurance that that is not the case at all. Never was, and never will be. Let Psalm 139 remind you that you are a child of God, a precious child of God, who will never not be in God's loving presence. And the whole church said, Amen.